Ukraine just received a plane that doesn't fire missiles, doesn't drop bombs, and doesn't attack anything directly. But this silent Swedish aircraft may be Russia's new nightmare. Because from hundreds of miles away, it can see Russian jets before they even enter the fight. And now, every Russian pilot has one terrifying question. Is Ukraine already watching me? Welcome back, SkyJet wings. Ukraine has just received one of its biggest air power upgrades from Sweden, but here's the shocking part. It is not a fighter jet, it is not a bomber, and it does not even fire missiles. Still, this aircraft may be one of the most dangerous weapons against Russia. Why? Because it sees everything before the enemy even knows it has been spotted. This is the Swedish Saab 340 AEWC, also called the ASC-890, a flying radar plane that can track enemy aircraft from hundreds of miles away. Sweden announced in May 2024 that it would send 2 of these aircraft to Ukraine in its largest military aid package, worth around $1.25 billion. But Ukraine could not use them immediately. Pilots, ground crews, and maintenance teams needed months of training, and special infrastructure had to be prepared. Experts said Ukraine might not use the Saab 340 until late 2025 or even early 2026, and they were almost right. Then, in June 2025, reports appeared that this aircraft was finally operating over Ukraine. At first, many people doubted its value because it could not attack Russian targets directly. But military experts knew the truth. In modern war, information can be more deadly than firepower. And soon, the Saab 340 proved it. A Russian Su-35 fighter jet, one of Moscow's most advanced aircraft, was sent to stop Ukrainian jets during an operation near northeast Ukraine. The Russian pilot believed he was flying into a normal mission, but he had no idea he was already being watched. High above the battlefield, the Swedish radar plane had detected him long before he reached the fight. It tracked his movement, passed the data to Ukraine's F-16 pilots, and turned the Russian mission into a trap. When the Su-35 came within range, a Ukrainian F-16 launched an AIM-120 missile using the information provided by the Saab 340. Moments later, the Russian jet was hit and crashed about 10 miles inside Russian territory. The pilot ejected, but the message was clear. Ukraine does not need to see Russia's jets with the naked eye anymore, because Sweden's flying radar is watching the battlefield first.
Each Russian Su-35 costs around $85 million, and the Kremlin does not like watching such expensive war machines fall from the sky. But this time, even Russia's advanced 4.5 generation fighter had no real chance, because the Swedish Saab 340 was watching its every move from above. After the incident, military experts quickly understood what had changed. This was not just another aircraft entering the war. This was a new level of battlefield control. Analysts said Ukraine's F-16s had become far more dangerous because they were now being guided by Sweden's flying radar system. But there was also a serious warning. Ukraine reportedly received only 2 of these Saab 340 planes, and losing even one could be a huge blow. That is why Ukrainian forces must hide them, protect them, and move them carefully, because one missile strike could destroy a priceless advantage. And the reason these aircraft matter so much is simple. The Saab 340 is not just a plane. It is a flying radar station, a command center in the sky, and an intelligence machine that gives Ukraine something it never truly had before, a full view of the battlefield. Before this, Ukraine had ground radars, drones, fighter radars, and air defense systems, but they were only seeing pieces of the picture. The Saab 340 connects those pieces and shows commanders what is really happening in the air and on the ground. Its powerful PS-890 Erieye radar sits on top of the aircraft like a long beam, and it can detect enemy aircraft and sea targets from around 280 miles away. Flying high above the battlefield, it can track hundreds of threats at the same time, including aircraft, missiles, and surface targets. But its most dangerous feature is its look-down radar ability. This means it can spot enemy jets flying low to avoid detection, something ground radars often struggle to do. So while Russian pilots may think they are hiding below the radar, the Saab 340 can still see them, and that changes everything. Because in this war, the side that sees first can fire first, move first, and survive longer. For Ukraine, This Swedish aircraft is not just an upgrade, it is a new pair of eyes in the sky, and Russia knows exactly how dangerous that can become.
Ground radars can only see so much. They may scan for miles, but hills, forests, buildings, mountains, and even the curve of the Earth can block their view. That is why Russian jets, drones, missiles, and glide bombs often fly low, using the land itself like a shield to hide from detection. But here is where the Saab 340 changes the story. From high above the battlefield, this Swedish radar plane looks down over everything. Forests cannot hide the target, hills cannot protect it, low altitude is no longer a safe escape route. And this is especially dangerous for one of Russia's most terrifying weapons, glide bombs. These bombs have been a nightmare for Ukraine. Russia launches them from aircraft like the Su-34 and Su-35 far away from the front line, keeping its pilots at a safer distance. Then the bombs glide toward Ukrainian defenses, towns, supply routes, and troop positions, carrying massive warheads that can destroy entire buildings in seconds. Ukraine has tried to fight them with electronic warfare, but Russia keeps upgrading these bombs with better guidance systems and stronger resistance against jamming. The hardest part has always been stopping them after they are launched. But what if Ukraine does not wait for the bomb? What if Ukraine targets the aircraft before it can release the weapon? That is exactly where the Saab 340 becomes so important. With its long-range radar and look-down ability, it can detect Russian bombers from nearly 300 miles away and send that information to Ukrainian F-16s or air defense systems. Suddenly, Russian pilots are not as safe as they thought. They may be forced to launch from worse positions, from longer distances, or maybe not launch at all. This gives Ukraine a powerful new advantage, seeing the threat before it strikes. But there is one serious problem. Ukraine reportedly has only 2 Saab 340 aircraft, and 2 planes cannot cover a country as large as Ukraine every hour of the day. These aircraft are also extremely valuable and vulnerable, so Ukraine must keep them protected, hidden, and constantly moving between airfields. Because if Russia manages to hit even one of them, Ukraine could lose one of its most powerful eyes in the sky.
Ukraine is keeping the exact use of these Saab 430 planes secret, and honestly, that makes sense. These aircraft are too valuable to expose. Most likely, Ukraine keeps one plane safe as a backup, ready to launch during major Russian missile or drone attacks, while the other may fly carefully planned missions closer to the east before pulling back to safety. But even if they are used only for limited missions, they are already creating a serious problem for Russia. Now, every time Russian bomber pilots prepare to launch glide bombs, there is one frightening question in their minds. Is Ukraine's Swedish radar plane watching us right now? That fear alone can change the battlefield. Russia does not have unlimited advanced jets, and each aircraft costs tens of millions of dollars. So if Russian commanders feel their bombers are being tracked, they may be forced to keep them farther from the front line, launch bombs earlier, or attack from worse positions. That means their glide bombs could become less accurate and less deadly, and that gives Ukrainian soldiers a better chance to survive. But there is another important issue, Link 16. This is a secure NATO data sharing system that lets aircraft, air defense units, ships, and ground forces share battlefield information almost instantly. If Ukraine's Saab 430 can connect with F-16s, Mirage 2000s, and Western air defense systems, then Ukraine's forces could act like one powerful network, spotting threats, sharing data, and striking back within seconds. The problem is that reports once suggested Ukraine's F-16s may not have full Link 16 access because of fears that Russia could capture the technology. Still, later reports mentioned possible F-16 modifications, which may have restored some of that capability. And if that is true, it could be a massive advantage for Ukraine. But even without Link 16, the Saab 430 is still a huge upgrade. It gives Ukraine better warning, better tracking, and a clearer view of Russian air threats than ever before. And if these aircraft also have advanced ground scanning features, they could do even more, watching Russian troop movements, tank columns, armored vehicles, and assault groups near the front line. Then comes the bigger picture. Sweden has also promised Gripen fighter jets to Ukraine. If the Saab 430 becomes the eyes in the sky and the Gripen becomes the sword in the air, together they could create a dangerous new combination, one that may help Ukraine defend its skies, protect its soldiers, and challenge Russia's control over the battlefield like never before.
For now, some of these future possibilities are still just predictions. But one thing is not a prediction anymore. The Saab 340 is already in Ukraine, and it is already changing the way this air war is being fought. This Swedish aircraft is now scanning the skies, watching the ground, and feeding Ukraine's military with a constant flow of intelligence. It sees farther than ground radar, reacts faster than old systems, and helps Ukrainian fighters and air defense units find the most dangerous targets before it is too late. That means Ukraine is no longer just waiting for Russia to attack. Now Ukraine can detect threats earlier, choose targets faster, and put pressure on Russia before Russian pilots feel safe. And that is a serious problem for Moscow. Every time Russia sends out valuable aircraft, it now has to wonder, is the Saab 340 already watching? Is Ukraine already preparing a response? This one aircraft may not fire missiles, but it strengthens the entire Ukrainian kill chain by helping others strike smarter and faster. And with more Swedish aircraft, Western weapons, and advanced systems coming in, Ukraine's air power is only becoming stronger. Even Russian officials are now being forced to admit that the war is not moving the way the Kremlin wanted. Ukraine is gaining momentum, Russia is paying a heavier price, and the skies over the battlefield are becoming more dangerous for Moscow than ever before. For more powerful military updates, strategy breakdowns, and battlefield analysis, make sure to subscribe to SkyJet Wings today.